Okay, quiet in the studio, fire in the hole. Here we go. Right, well, welcome to this special. This is AbFab, your delightful, lovely, delicious digital pub landlord.
And he is special.
You misdeluded.
I'm specially deluded. Right, this is part 7 in our Preserving Our Indigenous Identity and Culture. And this is about the arts and architecture. And this was something that was prepared by Stats. And what he was saying was this: the arts and architecture are deeply rooted in our culture and heritage. But sadly, there's regressive powers at work weaving their way of thinking into the fabric of these institutions. From the woke mind virus infecting the arts to the hideous eyesores that seem to defy gravity. Blighting the townscape, we need a rethink if we are to preserve these institutions. There you go. There's your introduction. Now, I know that we're all here because we just finished the other podcast. So just say hello, Trevor, a.k.a. the Gazelle. Say hello, sir.
Hello, Trevor.
No, that's not.
Hello, Trevor.
No, hang on. I don't think he meant that.
I didn't.
He meant me to say hello.
That's right.
You're all right.
And
That's
again,
all that.
after all of that, say hello, Statsman.
Yo.
And thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, sir. And obviously, the Raven, say hello.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so let me set the scene. Now, we're going to discuss a matter which is actually of utmost importance: the preservation of the rich cultural heritage encompassed by arts and architecture in the United Kingdom. In recent times, we've witnessed a growing concern about the rise of cancel culture and its potential impact on historical figures, statues, and literature. However, we must navigate this issue carefully, ensuring a balanced approach that respects diverse perspectives and fosters an inclusive society. Today, right, we're going to present a set of principles and actions to safeguard our cultural treasures whilst addressing the concerns raised by the woke thinkers. Now, are we going to give in to the woke?
Nope.
Like hell we are.
Well, I thought I'd put it out there. So, I mean, are we going to have an open dialogue about it?
Yes.
Yes, we're going to tell them where to go. We're going to preserve everything that our country is. And I'm well with Stats on this. We've done this, elements of this in the past, in terms of preserving our statues and various other things like that. And against the left, in particular, attempting to rewrite elements of our history.
Indeed.
I'll give way, but I'd just like to make a little bit of a point later on regarding the churches in this country.
Did you, that's a first on a podcast. He's just said, I'm going to give way. Straight away.
The end.
He wasn't waiting for anybody to do the wind-up signals to him or anything like that. You know?
Give him air. He'll faint.
I need oxygen, not air. Go ahead, Statsman.
Should we start with art?
Go on.
Well, we'll start with art. We'll go with the quality because, to be honest, it's not great, is it? I mean, you've had a drop in artists of 50% since the 70s and teachers and students, so that might save it. But what I've noticed is it used to require some skill, didn't it?
Yeah.
Now it's just about expressing yourself. It used to be romantic and sensual, but now it's all about making the artist feel good. I don't think beauty matters anymore. I think this could have probably started 200 or 300 years ago, actually, with modernism. Now, that was a break from the past, and it was a search for new forms of expression, which means philosophy started to dictate art, with many of these isms popping up all over the show. And there was a lot of experimentation in the arts during the late 19th and mid-20th century. So there was a lot of, let's just say, it produced some hideous work, and some that wasn't too bad. I mean, you've got things like Cubism and Expressionism and Impressionism.
I was just about to say Pablo
even
Picasso.
Picasso. I mean, I know we're talking about our culture, but this kind of discusses European stuff, really, and things. But I mean, you've got like Picasso. He started off well, and it just went
stuff. Forget that.
We're talking about hours. It just went weird, didn't it? And I think we used to have some lovely paintings and artists. I just think it's got progressively worse now, to the point where people are just using feces and blood and just flicking it onto things. And And again, these foreign philosophies have got a lot to answer for.
But they think that they're pushing boundaries.
Yeah, well, these liberal lefty intellectuals need to think again. I think they've had a bad influence on it, to be honest. But
I loved pictures of of the countryside, the haywain.
It's nice.
Pictures like that actually involved real talent. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I do like a bit of a mixture of art and history and things like that, actually. And the same, not only with pictorial art, but also music. I've got quite a wide range of music tastes, a lot of classical music and mainly the popular classics, if you like, the more popular classics and popular culture. But the thing at the moment that sticks in my mind is the attempt by people to undermine all of these things which are significant and represent our mixed heritage and culture in terms of what we've become as a country and how we've developed. I mean, I'm a big fan of, I like Jack Vetriano's work, which is kind of a little bit more modern, and some very, very slightly romantic and erotic and paintings and things like that. But he's a very, very good artist, actually. And a lot of his stuff you can buy in prints. Very good stuff. But I like to see our heritage.
Well, people like John Constable, like I mentioned before.
That's right. And we've got lots of composers and lots of architects and Thomas Telford. We've got all these fabulous people throughout history. And now, like Mark said, he made a very good point, actually, that if people sort of go to art school, they turn up and do a display of an unmade bed and things like this and throw rubbish in a room, or there's nothing there. I've seen one where it's just a picture frame with a white sheet in it and there's nothing there. And it's given some fancy title and they stand there studying this thing for hours.
Yeah.
It's a complete nonsense. It's a Mickey take. But the big thing for me in all of this is the very fact that the left want to undermine all of the traditional things, such as our architecture. And I will give way to Trevor now, but I do want to make this point. It's very important to me. I am fed up of, I mean, we discussed this, we touched on this a few weeks ago, the failure of the Church of England to maintain its traditional ways. And I do not like to see our churches, our Christian churches in this country, continuing to fall into demise. I mean, we see lots. I mean, in Cheshire, as an example, we see hundreds and hundreds of little churches and villages, which are some of the most outstanding buildings with history and heritage and our Christian past, which are fabulous. And a lot of these places are not being used. They're falling into disarray and being sold off.
Some of the archbishops, I think there was one in the press the other week, was questioning the relevance of, Our Father who art in heaven. When it starts getting to that point, these people, are they really, really godly people? I don't know. But when it comes to music, and I will give way to that godly gentleman, Mr. Hartley, any moment here, we need to be talking about people like William Byrd, Henry Purcell, Thomas Tallis.
Purcell was a fabulous composer, Jonathan. Top mention there.
Great stuff. I mean, I should have started with Thomas Tallis because he came before. He was like 1550s, something like that, around about then. And then, later on, we were talking about people like Edward Elgar, Gustav Holst,
fabulous.
Benjamin Britten, Ralph Vaughan Williams. I mean, brilliant. Frederick Delius, another great one.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant composers. Who can name any of them now? Well, obviously me.
Well, it's all like One Direction, all that kind of rubbish, isn't it? I think Trevor's waiting to get in.
All right, Trevor, go ahead. Sorry, sir. I just wanted to get that in. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to bring it back. I'm probably going off on a tangent here, as you may,
We don't mind.
Probably imagine.
We expect it of you, sir.
Oh, you expect it, I should say. Yeah, I just want to bring it back to the modern. As Mark mentioned earlier on, Cubism. Cubism. We're bringing it back down to Philip Schofield.
All right. How do you reckon that one out?
Cube.
The Cube. It was a game show, wasn't it?
Sorry, we're not connecting here now.
No. This is like Connect 4, but I'm only getting Connect -1. Go on.
Yeah, well, don't worry about that because Diane Abbott has that problem.
That game connect.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm bringing it back to the to modern art, i.e., selling pictures.
Yeah.
You know, so we're going back to the BBC. Oh, coming back to the BBC, I should say.
Oh, that statue outside the front of the BBC. They've still got it with that paedophile. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
they've still got it. Why
What
is
is
it
it?
not going to remove it? Why don't they just appease the British public and just say, right, okay, let's just take it away to end the problem? Why won't they do that?
Would you give way to Statsman, please, sir?
Oh, certainly. Sorry, Stats. Where you go?
It's funny, isn't it? Because they won't take that statue away, but they will attack our statues, as in Churchill was vandalised with racist.
Yeah.
Coulson's statue was toppled in Bristol into the water. Someone called Robert Milligan, who I think was a slave owner, he's removed from outside London Docklands.
Yeah.
Yet they won't remove that one. Now, so they're removing these people because of their violent white supremacist past or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you've got the likes of Nelson Mandela statue there. He used to... he was quite violent too, to say the least.
And these calls are coming from another ism called wokeism.
Well, this is the thing.
Communism.
It's this postmodernism again. I mean, we'll discuss it in a little bit when we look at some of the architecture.
Yeah.
But this postmodernism, this was a kickback against modernism, and it denies the Enlightenment faith in technology and science and sees reason and logic as destructive and oppressive, which to me is quite funny, really, as the denial of reason and logic is what's led to this whole gender argument, which created the oppressive cult of woke. So we see this denial of logic in many aspects of life. It's the stupid left-wing lack of logic. It always ends in tears, doesn't it?
Well, when we talk about architecture, Mark, right, who's going to beat Christopher Wren or Inigo Jones?
Well, that's just a problem we've got, you see.
You know, who's going to beat them?
I just want to touch on
George Gilbert Scott, another one.
Yeah. Before we move on to the architecture, I just want to discuss theatres. Now, there's an issue with theatres. There's some of the top theatres in the country have been threatened with having funding withdrawn for failing to meet diversity quotas. So the Arts Council of England actually done an annual diversity report. I mean, what the hell has this got to do with art? And there was two that among the art institutions that told they must improve to get funding.
Yeah.
So the money they're awarded each year depends on meeting diversity requirements, not on the quality of art. I think it should be about not quantity; it should be about quality. Yeah.
Well, it should. Steve should know about George Gilbert Scott because this guy was responsible for. I think he called it the English Gothic revival, right? And he was chiefly associated with the design, building, and renovation of churches and cathedrals. Although he did start his career as a leading designer of workhouses. Now, that's the one where they, the diversity people and the woke people will be saying, well, about that. Go ahead, Stevie.
You made a good point before in the fact that,
Did you hear that, chaps? Can we get that recorded?
Who would match Christopher Wren? You have to ask yourself now, we live in what can only be described as a very disposable and utilitarian society where it doesn't matter what is made, whether it's furniture, whether it's houses, whether it's public buildings or anything like that. It doesn't matter what it is. It now has, by and large, a very short lifespan.
It shouldn't, because, Christopher Wren, when was the London fire? I think it was 1660s?
66.
That's it. Okay. Right. And after that fire, Christopher Wren was responsible for building the churches.
Yeah, in my previous job...
Just to tell you, the most famous one was St. Paul's.
That's right. Well, in my previous job, I used to go to all sorts of buildings all over Cheshire. And I used to go to one which was a religious retreat in my job. And this building, part of this particular building was like well over 500 years old. And there's all sorts of buildings all over the place. I don't think we're going to be building anything today which will be around in 100 years, let alone 300, 400, 500 years. And I think this is such a shame because one of the things about our history and our heritage, particularly architecture, is this. Bear this in mind. It's very important, this. Back in the day, you go back to Victorian times and before, hundreds of years ago, all of the buildings that were made were made on the basis that the buildings reflected the moral and ethical standards of the people of the day. In other words, they set very, very high standards in terms of how they made things, what they made them with, and the skills and crafts which they applied to doing this. Very, very skilled things and were used to do these things, which is why, by the way, a quick point, a personal point, I have quite an affinity and a liking for things which are made out of iron, glass, stone, and wood, particularly oak, because all of the buildings that are around today were made from those four materials.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, the thing is, some of the buildings you talk about, Steve, were built over decades, weren't they? People took time and effort. It wasn't just built, it was built for the future, for the community. The problem here is you might not get as many of these coming through now, because when we look at the art and the theatres, the problem is what's happening is people are being coerced and bullied and intimidated to follow the left-wing dogma. So yes. you had the who was it? Art Professional. They did a survey, and more than 500 artists and artworkers contributed some 60,000 words on questions about their experiences of being coerced and bullied. So it's getting harder for people to just express themselves the way they want. You've got to fit this left-wing dogma. So again, the buildings that came, like postmodernism, probably came after the Second World War, and again, come from Europe and America. And we have these hideous structures. We have some real concrete, absolute eyesores. I mean, some of them aren't too bad. If you look at the MI6 building, that's not too bad. But then when you look at some of the other places that have just got these bright colours and they just defy gravity. I mean, you've got things like there's a Isle of Dogs pumping station. Look it up. Hideous. The One Poultry Bank. Disgusting. China Wharf. Honestly, you've got to have a look at some of these things. And then you've got the Circle and Southwark. These look like houses from Toy Town. They look like something off Noddy. I'm pretty sure that people used to build things in a certain way for a reason, because they lasted longer and they looked nice. Now people are just throwing things up because, I want to be different. Yeah. I want to stick out.
That's true.
I think they're building them for the wrong reasons, to be honest, not for the purposes buildings should be built for.
Hold on a second. We haven't heard from the Gazelle. Gazelle, you're listening quite patiently to this. What's your view?
Yeah, I am. I'm listening to this. And who's in control of all this? As regards to
English heritage, they're one of them.
Yeah, the statues, etc. Like Mark said there, we've got the destroying things of the Churchill statues, etc., etc. But you've got the BBC statue that's not being removed. Why? Who is in control of this?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to.
Who is it?
I'd like to come in on that because, again, this has been touched upon a number of times by us, actually. All of our institutions, as we've expressed, have been infiltrated. That's the only word to use. Yeah. By a hardcore far-left agenda. All of our heritage, which is under these umbrella organisations that look after our historical infrastructure and buildings and art and everything else, has been hijacked for a narrative which we've been discussing here. And I think it's high time that a centre-right agenda was re-established in this country based on protecting everything that we are as a country, and also our heritage, our Christian heritage. I'm very big on that, actually, because the country has lost completely its fundamental values, and we need to get back to that.
But I just want to get straight back to that fundamental point, Steve. Who is in control of this? Is it the government?
No.
No, I think it's an insidious.
I'll call it. Sorry, I won't say. I'll call it out.
Wait. It's an insidious backroom bunch of quangos. That's who's actually in control of it. Go ahead, Steve.
All interlinked. And I'm going to call out Common Purpose, and Common Purpose members and activists should be named, shamed, and exposed for their involvement in the cultural Marxist program to destroy this country. You should all be named.
Go ahead,
I do not understand this. I do not understand what you're saying there, Steve. We have to have somebody in charge.
Well, we do have a minister. We do have a minister in charge of what's going on, for a heritage.
Who is saying that, right, we're going to leave the paedophilic statue outside the BBC but we're going to remove the rest. Somebody has to be accountable for that.
Correct.
Well,
Who is it?
The BBC are deciding to leave the statue, and the local councils are the ones, as we experienced. Some of them threaten to do it, and some of them do remove things.
Well, the BBC can't. The BBC, that's just an institution. That's not the government.
It's on their building, isn't it? So it'd be quite hard to get someone to tell them to remove it, to be honest. That's why people took it upon themselves.
It's Nigel Huddleston.
I don't understand this. I'm confused here.
Okay, the minister in charge for heritage is a fellow called, I think it is Nigel Huddleston. I don't know much about him because we've got a minister for heritage, and also heritage involves tourism. And, you sit back and you just go, I think it's him. I think he's still there. He's in the DCMS, Digital Culture, Media and Sport. Okay. Although he might have left by now. I'm not sure. I'm just doing it from memory.
But the problem is we do go, and then everybody passes it by. No, let's not pass it by. Who is the person responsible for leaving that statue up there when other statues are being removed?
Whoever runs the BBC, Trev. That's why we need to be looking at solutions, I think.
I was doing that from memory. We do have, it's Helen Whatley, who is the Parliamentary Undersecretary of State for Minister for Arts, Heritage and Tourism. So she's the Undersecretary of State. So
we need to ask her questions then.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we could include some of these solutions, I think. To fix this, we're going to have to recognise that arts institutions on artistic excellence. That's a mouthful. Not this woke garbage. They're going about this the wrong way. The arts need to shock people again, not preach to an echo chamber of woke morons. The encouraging thing, though, is that did see a fight back recently in London. Now, they had an event called The Exhibition. It was called The Exhibition, which was a collection of so-called distant artists from across Europe. And they claim they want to return to beauty and move away from petty ideology. So they want to create this cultural shift. So it is possible because they want to avoid this stagnation. It actually looked pretty decent. It looked better than the competition they were up against, which was things like We Are Queer Britain and Diva and loads of African, Persian and Japanese themed drivel. Again, now this is the thing. Majority of money spent in theatres goes towards admin. Yeah. I think that's totally wrong as well. I think when public money is to be spent, it shouldn't go unchecked. I think the public needs scrutiny on what's being invested into the arts and in this architecture. I think like when we discussed TV the other week, art needs to bring people together, create memories for friends and families, stuff that you remember forever, not this divisive identity politics dressed up as diversity. I think if they continue like this, we know how it's going to end, don't we?
Yeah. I have to actually correct myself because... all these people that I was talking about, they've all been superseded because I was doing most of it from memory. The current guy, which I've just checked up on now, is Stuart Andrew. And he took over the job in September 22. So he is the current Undersecretary of State for Sport, Tourism and Civil Society. Okay.
Well, maybe we need to prompt him. We need to build more statues of our heroes, not from other countries. And we've got to protect them at all costs. Make them untouchable and build more of them. I think, and like Trevor just said, we need to find out whoever's given the go-ahead for these horrible-looking buildings just needs firing. Yeah. I think plans going forward should be considered on appearance and whether they're going to actually be standing in God knows how many years, because a lot of these concrete monstrosities are just being knocked down now because they're just worthless.
Okay, go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, you've just... clarified yourself there, Jonathan. You've changed about 3 names.
I know, this is the thing. It just...
Now,
I was doing the first 2 were from memory. If I was trying to recall certain things.
No, it's not a criticism. I'm just saying that these are the facts. We have more shuffles than the resurrection shuffle in this government.
And there's another one coming right now.
And there's another one coming, yeah. So what happens is they move somebody into the culture department. Then they move them out. Then they move them in. It's the okey-dokey of the government, isn't it? And that's all they do. They continually do it. Yep. It's all evasion. Yep. There is never, ever anybody accountable.
You want consistency and accountability. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
You're never going to get it.
I don't think anyone can control that. One person can't control all this. You've got different boards and different people who run different, say, theatres, art galleries, who architecture firms, etc., and they're all being led by diversity quotas.
Yeah, yeah.
I
go with that.
We've got to attack.
Have somebody in Parliament.
Weak leadership.
Yes, I go with
leadership,
that.
Exactly.
It is. But they're never going to...
right the way through it, all the way through.
The thing is, they probably don't... This is a really complex subject if you go into it all. I mean, the art world's become fractured that much. It's impossible to control it. Literally, honestly, and these people couldn't run a bathroom, run the country. They're not going to understand all this and even be able to change culture.
You've got to say to that government who is in charge of this.
Because it's a part of everything that we do.
Yeah, but again, here we're relying on the government, and they just make a mess of everything. So that's why these people who've set up this exhibition and are doing alternative stuff and trying to bring it back to art looks beautiful and it's got some meaning to it, and you can look at it and think, oh, I know why he drew that. You don't have to listen to the fella say, well, I did this because of his reason. It's just some of the stuff they're making these days is garbage.
I'm with you. I
think it should be up to the people to change the culture, because it's quite clear that the governments are not capable of this at all.
No, I agree with you. And one thing I want to do is, I don't want to get off too far into this because I don't want it to be too long. Okay, so quite simply, we're missing out some of the things. So would everybody say, yes, we agree there is something going on that is undermining what we already have? Now, we have to have an open dialogue. We have to actually try and preserve it through education. That's another important point, because there's not enough of this stuff taught to the kids in the school. We need preservation and interpretation. And I have to say it, we do need to actually consider the promotion of new works. We do need to do that. So if anybody else has got any further comments on that, please tell me now.
Get rid of the government, vote reform.
Right, okay, I get it. I'm calling time on that one, gentlemen.
I'd just like to say, let's protect our entire heritage, our buildings, our traditional art, and especially our churches, because without that, we don't stand a chance.
Yeah, well, what I want to say is, where are the Isambard Kingdom Brunels of today? I want to know where they are. And these architects can't work without real engineers to do certain things.
They're all coming over on the boats, mate. Don't worry. It'll all be fixed.
Right. What are they going to be building? I'm sorry. I'm being straight.
If you look at the way the French buildings are being attacked, they're historical ones. Have we got this to come to? So this is going to get worse.
Well, the burning churches in France.
Exactly.
What happens in France will come to England.
That's right. Well, okay. Well, we can get back into the politics of things. So there you go. That's another special that we've been talking about. And I'm actually quite hopeful that there's going to be some common sense there, because if anybody burns our churches over here, there are definitely groups of people that are going to come out and say, nah, you're not on. That isn't going to happen.
We're not having it.
Absolutely.
I like your optimism, but
okay.
Yeah, okay. I totally agree there, man. I love your optimism, but you ain't got
They're not doing it in France, are they? So
you haven't got a chance, boy.
No, you got to change the culture.
I do. I think we do have a chance. I definitely do. Well, there you go. I'm calling it there. Here we go. Well, there's that music again, Trevor. Can you hear me?
Of course I can. I absolutely love that music. I was there when you wrote that, Jonathan, within about 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you, sir. There you go.
What an absolute, I don't know, genius you are. That's all I can say.
Oh, do you know what? See that? See the grimace on the face of the raven there? See that grimace?
You see, I've never heard anything like this in my life. He never gets knocked off on the sound here. Every single week. Brings apples in every week. Oh, my God. It's unbelievable.
Go ahead, Statsman.
That's the problem with you, Raven. You just don't have that genius. I love you to bits. I love you as a manly. Don't get me wrong.
Stop. We're not going down that route again. I've had to put a stop to this kind of
talk. I love you, and I think you can do well in one of my crotchless mankinis. I think you would look delicious. But anyway, I just have to say that the landlord wrote that within 2 minutes in front of my eyes, and I was in awe.
Yep, there you go.
Yes, well, he's a fabulous musician and stuff like that. But unfortunately, you are too much in the club. You've got to let yourself go and be.
There you go. He's muted. Go ahead, Stats.
Can we remix it? The banging beat behind it, or
That's
like
right.
drum and bass beat or something. Spice it up a bit. And we'll do a Cheshire Masters after hours.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
With a hardcore
talking of
version.
Cheshire Matters after hours, I'm
back
still
again.
waiting for you lot to agree to do the YMCA routine. We've got to get.
We're not doing that
practice in
gay stuff. You can get lost. Right? You can do it on your
Nothing
own.
gay about it,
We'll
it's
get you
all
those.
right.
We will get you those models that you can actually do it all by yourself with a couple of sticks. There you go.
this. Models. What's he on about?
Oh, have you not seen that guy that does it? He comes on with these mannequins, and they're all dressed, in that way. Do you remember?